What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access. Today we're joined by Propaganda. Thank you for coming through, sir.
What's up? Appreciate you.
Yes, likewise.
Yeah.
And he's got a new project that came out recently called Crooked. And one of the many things about it that I thought was very interesting is the very overtly and heavily political nature of the album.
Yeah.
So why was that something that you wanted to do?
Man, I feel like it was, like culture has pushed us to where it's like unavoidable. You know what I mean? If I'm gonna make an album that's relevant in any way, shape, or form, it's like, it's the 800-pound gorilla. Like, you know what I mean? You can, ignore that. You know what I'm saying? Right. And then secondly, like my albums, really from day one, I've always had a tone of sort of political commentary, social commentary. So I feel like it just kind of sat in the same space, but I just, there's such a ratcheting of culture that it was like, this is like really unavoidable,
Yeah, I agree with you, of course, but I also think this Crooked may be more overt.
Yeah, for sure.
And more prominent throughout the entire album.
Yeah. Yeah, which had a lot to do with where I was, obviously, like emotionally.
Yes.
And kind of I had found myself thrust into a position where I was actually asked to speak on a very particular topics, whether it was just like coming to do like keynotes or like helping like staff. Sometimes they're like church staff, sometimes they're nonprofits or businesses, like help us think through like this race thing. You know what I mean? I live such an intersectional life. Like I'm married to a first generation Latina, you know what I'm saying? And who's a doctor in education, you know what I'm saying? So like there's so many like intersections that I had gotten asked to like speak on. So, and just what was happening with me emotionally and like trying to like put a finger on like why I feel this way and giving voice to, knowing that there's a good amount of unheard voices that feel exactly like I feel.
Yeah, and I think the album with Crooked Ways, the way it starts off, I think is a good introduction to the album.
Yeah. So
how and why did Crooked end up being the title and Crooked Ways fit in so much that you wanted to make it the first song?
So there's a symmetry with the first song and the last song, which is like technically like it's a reference of something that like Jesus said in one of the Gospels, like he'll come and make the crooked and crooked ways made straight. So that's like or he'll come and make the crooked way straight. So the idea was like the first song is Crooked Ways and the last song is Made Straight. So it's Crooked Ways Made Straight. So anyway, so that's like, there's like a meta narrative going on there. But I think the first song really was like, I had spent a lot of the year before doing a lot of poetry events. And I was like, man, I just want to rap. You know what I mean? So there was a part of me that was like 7 minutes, raps, let's go, bars. But the importance of opening up the album was like, let me just scrub your palate clean, that I'm gonna talk about a lot of things and I'm gonna do a lot of rapping. But it's really like ultimately is the tension of like, when you're talking about crooked, like you can always point out and say this is a crooked system, but a crooked system comes from crooked relationships because of crooked desires, which means that I have to talk about myself. You know what I'm saying? So that first song is really about that tension, how it's like, I don't know, if like going through it, you're seeing me switch between what I'm seeing and who I am, what I'm seeing and who I am, and kind of how I'm indicted in both of those situations. You know what I'm saying? So that's like why like I wanted to lay that out in the beginning.
And that's one thing I think that's interesting about that song in particular, and throughout a lot of your work throughout your career, is the accountability layer.
Yeah.
Because one thing, obviously, given the atrocious history of our country, there's a lot of ways that people examine race in rap, and most of it is being upset or frustrated or angry or rage-filled, all of which is justified in my opinion. But that being said, there's not as much where people are talking about being accountable or what did I do or how can I improve. I mean, it's all in there, but it's not as pronounced.
Man.
So for you, why is that important to elaborate on?
Absolutely. I think there's an important understanding of like power and oppression and a continuum. I think oftentimes we try to do like what my wife calls the oppression Olympics. Like where it's like, I've suffered worse than you, therefore every cause needs to be about mine. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
But I think when you do that, you short circuit the resistance, period. So if you see oppression as an umbrella, if you will, that motif of like power and oppression as like an umbrella that stretches over all of it. Then there's things like what Kimberly Crenshaw, UCLA, expert on critical race theory, concept of intersectionality, which has to do with like sort of the ways that our identities overlap as they relate to power, right? So which would mean that like in that overlap, I'm crushed, but I'm also indicted, like in the sense that like whatever situation that created Standing Rock, I'm crushed under that same oppression, right? But I know I live on stolen land. Like I know I live on native soil. So it's like I'm indicted just as much as I'm pressed by it. You know what I'm saying? I live in America. I exist a considerable amount of male privilege. You know what I'm saying? So whatever privilege that comes with being a male that my wife is crushed under, you understand what I'm saying? Right. I get it, because it's still patriarchy, and for America it's a white patriarchy, but the point is I still benefit, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's important that when you understand the overlap, then I think that pushes all of our narratives forward better.
How do you think that Crooked fits into the bigger picture of what like Humble Beast is doing and where you're going as an artist? Yeah,
so we try to like fire on all cylinders. I think it's not really wise to try to take all your artists and put them through the same like pipeline, right? Because then it just creates a bottleneck, and now they're like fighting over the same fans. So like what we try to do is really fan that out, like pan it out a little bit, and like let our voices be as unique as possible, and being united under like obviously like a very similar worldview, but like be like we're different sides of one coin. Like you take like a Beautiful Eulogy, if you will, like which is like very overtly worshipy Christian, you know, thing. So they're like, we're talking literally about the sun. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, well, I'm gonna talk about what the sun shines on. You know what I'm saying? So like, we're not the same. You understand what I'm saying? But we're united. So I think that like that's like the idea of that. Like I take a very multicultural, political, sociological view. Somebody like a Sho Baraka takes much more of a sort of a black identitarian, which is still very theological approach to things, and like Beautiful Eulogy is what they are, and then Jackie's more like a poet, just street girl, you know what I'm saying? Right. So we try to like, it's almost like diversifying, you know what I'm saying? So I play my role, you know?
And then how do you think, you know, we're more than 20, coming up on 30 years from the explosion on a mainstream level of gangster rap from Los Angeles in particular. So what do you think are still kind of the ramifications of being an LA artist that's not a gangster rapper, even in this era?
Yeah, I would have had a different question like pre-Kendrick, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Like I think Kendrick really changed a lot of the rules.
In what ways?
In that you can legitimately be both. You know what I mean? Okay. And especially I think To Pimp a Butterfly like sonically points at that, where it's like these George Clinton, you know, funkadelic samples, patterns that sound like Sugar Free and AC Alone, you know what I'm saying? Like, which I know you know what I'm saying? And those songs being right next to each other. Right. Like that's a Sugar Free song. That's Ghetto Boundaries, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, so he really
encapsulates both worlds.
Encapsulates both, and like, I don't know if anyone had done that successfully before him. And like I said, like I feel like Ahmad was like the precursor of it, but what Kendrick did totally like, it just changed it. But yeah, I think that like there's definitely like the sort of, you know, top tier sort of mainstream outlets still see like b-boy hip-hop as a subgenre, you know what I'm saying? Like that, like you're not the main story of LA, like this is the main story of LA, you know what I'm saying? So I think there's still a little bit of like, if you're gonna get that type of noise, like somehow or another you gotta like nudge as far as you can without jumping off, because I think Vince Staples is a great example of that. Like I'm the closest I can to like gangster rap, but he's really not a gangster rapper, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, so I think if you're gonna it's forces you to really find that like hugging of the side of the lane, you know what I'm saying? And for me, I just was kind of like, I feel like a lot of us have like rushed to that my thought was like, well, if I'm gonna stand out, I need to not even try to get in it. You know what I mean? So like, I was like, well, I'm just gonna stay here. You know what I mean? And I think in like, and you know, you take like the like no can do's and like the verbs. So that Project Blowed world is also a very distinct world, you know, that has very distinct aesthetics that I also don't fit in, you know what I'm saying? But I pull from, just like I pull from this, you know what I'm saying? But so for me, it's like, it's that actually like motif has made me be, I would say, like even more creative and more truthfully myself.
And I think too that, you know, as your career evolves, and at least now with Crooked being the most probably overtly political project, where do you think you're going?
Man, I mean, last week I spoke at Princeton's theological seminary. So I think it's like put me in these places where I'm like, yo, that's an Ivy League, like word, you know what I'm saying? So I think that it like, it throws you into like just grown man rap, you know what I mean? Which means now, like, I think in a lot of ways, like I'll enjoy touring more. I think I'll enjoy sort of like, cause I enjoy that. Like I taught high school for 6 years. Like I enjoy like mic off, camera off, classroom setting. Let's build culture. You know what I'm saying? So I think that this record has like made sort of that world of gatekeepers almost like take me serious, that like, well, he's not just a kid, like like this guy actually does know what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying?
That's helpful.
It does. It is, you know.
And how do you find, I always thought it was interesting because the academia seems to, on the one hand, look down on rap, but on the other hand, it seems to embrace it in a lot of ways. So I haven't really been able to figure out what I really think or feel about that, because, you know, we see Nas, Ninth Wonder, KRS-One, Ice-T, yourself, a lot of, you know, established names, you know, speaking at colleges and have been since the 80s and 90s until today. So when you, like, what surprised you or what impressed you or what disappointed you about going into the academic world in that regard? Yeah,
well, I think that, like I said, like I had like a California teaching credential. So like there was a part of me that was like, this is not strange to me. You know, my wife is like an academy academic, you know what I mean? So there was a lot that I already knew.
But they perceive you differently when you go in as a rapper.
They perceive you differently when you go in as a rapper, yes. But for my track, like I went in as a hybrid because I talk about my experiences as a teacher, like especially on the last record on Crimson Core, like the Board of Education song. So that's coming from like, those are in a lot of ways like flags or dog whistles to educators that like, that dude was a teacher. You know what I'm saying?
He's one of us.
He's one of us. So I think that my personal experience was like one of those.
So with Propaganda, thanks for coming through again.
Hey, appreciate you, homie.
Unique Access. I'm Soren Baker, Unique Access, Propaganda. Make sure you pick up Crooked if you haven't already. And if you have it, listen again.
Be sure to check out The History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Young TV Raps with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
There's always gonna be shit happening in the street. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.